Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of No Conduct Radio. Tonight we're talking conspiracy theories. So we want to know, we do want to know, but we're going to talk about is 9/11 real in the sense that was it really the terrorists who did it? And we're also going to talk about some other conspiracy theories out there. Char is running late today, but she's going to bring up, apparently there are conspiracy theories going on about Bobby Christina's death. I don't know what they are. I've never heard of them. And then I'm going to also read the top 8 conspiracy theories that are turning out to be true. So we're going to read up more about that. Tonight it's supposed to be Kai, Logic, Oran, Jill, and Char. Like I said, Char's running late. Oran and Jill are MIA. Conspiracy theory, maybe the aliens got them. I don't know. So that's what we're talking about tonight. Logic, shockingly, you're on time when everybody else isn't. What's going on?
What do you mean? I'm always on time.
You're on Logic time.
No, I'm always
on time. Okay. So what's going on, Logic? This show actually was thought of by you. So what gave you the inspiration for this show?
Well, I mean, I'm a history buff, and I was just, what was it? It was a few months ago that I started just looking at how things are as far as what the media portrays or what they actually report on as opposed to what's really happening. So I just was kind of looking at that, and then I was just, actually I thought ignorantly, this new age is crazy, the way that they seem so ruthless, and, they just don't care about just outright lying to do what they want. So obviously, through my research, I found out, I don't know how I ended up revisiting the 9/11 thing, but I revisited that, and there was a lot of stuff that happened that I didn't know about, and it's a lot of weird stuff. Then I went back before that, and it was, that took me to, like, the Vietnam War. So obviously,
wow. All the way back then?
Yeah. And so there was a big situation that actually got us into the war, which was called the Gulf of Tonkin incident, that turned out to be completely false. Like, there were other, I think it was either France or somebody else was out there, and they said nothing happened in the Gulf. There was no boats out there. So the whole pretense of us getting into the Vietnam War was based on a lie. That the government came out and admitted that, that there was no incident. But it was just astounding to me that was the case. Because I thought, I didn't even know why we were in Vietnam States. I never thought about it. It was before my time. But that was just crazy. And then obviously, the whole JFK getting shot thing with the magic bullet theory, that was always a weird thing, which was around the same time as Vietnam. And the conspiracy theory picked up in JFK wanted to get out of the war because he didn't think Americans needed to be there. And then he died, and Lyndon B. Johnson signed the treaty for us to go back in and be committed for another whatever amount of years. So he was totally against it, and as soon as he died,
suddenly we're in the war.
Exactly, like we're back in, and there's no question about it now. And as everybody should know by now, war is money for people. It's usually not ever about whatever we're supposed to be fighting a war about. It's usually about money. So it was just crazy to me that happened. And then going further back, the Pearl Harbor incident has some weird things going on, that admirals came out and spoke about the stuff the government did that left us wide open. Then the Lusitania, which was the World War one incident that got us into the war, that we had no dog in that fight, which was the Lusitania was a ship that got torpedoed by German subs. But incidentally, I don't know, maybe months before that, there was two men talking, high level government people that were talking, and the one was like, what would it take for America to get into this war? And the guy was like, it would have to be some event that cost Americans their lives that would get, Americans in the homeland riled up enough to actually want to be in the war. And then that happened like a few months later. And he specifically described like maybe some kind of, tragedy at sea or something. And there's just a lot of weird things that's been happening over the years. So it just made me kind of take another look at the government. And I never paid attention too much about the lunar landing hoaxes, but I read a lot of physicists that ended up costing themselves their careers that questioned the validity of
wow.
if we went to the moon. Yeah. So it's a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff going on. It's just
so basically they questioned, like throughout all these things that you were researching, anyone who questioned if this was true or not, all of them just disappeared?
No, not disappeared, but I mean they disappeared in a way. Like not the men in black show up and then no one sees you again. It's not anything drastic like that, but it's like, say, okay, remember when we went to Iraq, and anyone that ever said us going into Iraq is stupid, they were like, you're not patriotic and blah, blah, blah. And it usually would end up costing them their job, or if they were, maybe had a position in a reputable company or a school or something, and they questioned it, it ended up usually being a problem for them in their career. Like, people would end up asking them to leave. Like, you remember that, right?
No.
Like, around the time of 9/11 and going into the war, anybody that didn't question it was said to be not being patriotic. And Bush gave a speech and said, if you question what we're doing, that just emboldens the enemy and blah, 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 blah. Like, there's a lot of that. There was a lot of that going on. And to this day, it's the same thing. If you question 9/11 in any way, they just look at you like you're a nut. Like, oh, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. But there are, like, pilots that said things that they're saying that happened is not possible in physics. You know what I mean? So going back to the lunar thing, NASA obviously is the it thing in the astronomical world, and anything that has to do with astronomy and space travel, and physicists that are into that cosmic stuff, they have to kind of go along with the story. And if they question the story, then the scientific community will kind of turn their back on them, But there's a lot of things that happen, and it does make sense if you think about it. We went to the moon back in the 60s, right? It was the Apollo mission.
Uh-huh.
Why have we not been back? I mean, NASA says because it's too expensive, but something being too expensive has never stopped the government.
That doesn't make sense because we've been other places, and aren't they getting together like a mission to go to Mars, which is further than the moon?
They shot a rover over there, but there's a mission to Mars is way off because they're talking about going back. What?
Excuse me, I don't want to be disrespectful, but how much did it cost to send that satellite to Pluto? I mean, because that thing flew for 9 years at 1 million miles a day. So how much does that cost?
Well, Voyager you're talking
about? The satellite to Pluto that they just sent, I don't know if you heard about that. There's a satellite they sent to Pluto to take pictures, and it's been 9 years. I think it just got there, last week or something?
Yeah, and it only took pictures. It was only taking pictures for about 100 minutes. Or 100 seconds or something like that, and that thing was going at 50,000 miles an hour, about a million miles.
The only thing with that, it may be cheaper because there were no humans on board, so
No humans.
it was just a machine.
I can understand that. I can understand that.
So the guy that designed the rocket for the Apollo missions, he was one of the Nazi scientists that was designing the U-2. So, what he said in his book is to go to the moon would require a rocket of such mystic proportions and so much fuel to be able to get there and back that it would not be possible. And if you go back into your history, Russia was the first in everything that had to do with space. They was the first satellite. They was the first spacewalk. They were the first orbit, as a man, and first orbit as a team. They were the first in everything. Then all of us, and the United States had no hope of catching up with them. Like, they were way beyond them. Now, then out of the pocket, Kennedy says we're going to go put a man on the moon, and we're going to do it before the end of the decade. And they pull it off with no real explanation of how they got this technological leap on Russia.
They got some of their scientists. They got their engineers and scientists.
They got what?
Their engineers and scientists. They brought them over.
They could have been spying on them?
Well, no, they got them. They stole them, recruited them, whatever. They got them.
No,
to my knowledge.
True. You got your information wrong. There was no.
Okay, maybe.
There was.
Okay, I could be wrong. I probably am, but that's my thought on it.
That's what you thought. That's what you think, or did you research that or read it somewhere?
I saw it on some of the movies that I watched, because I watched a lot of the movies, like going back to what you were talking about, 9/11. Like, I agree. You said anybody who said anything against that, they were, a non-American, not a patriot. But I believe all that stuff was staged. 9/11, the First World War, World War II, Pearl Harbor, Vietnam War was just, it was staged, and also it was just managed. That's why it took so long. There were so many things that the United States, the soldiers couldn't do, and then all the list of things that they couldn't do, the Vietnamese knew. And so it was just, that's why it took so long. I mean, you familiar with the false flags, right? Just like Hitler did that. Hitler blew up his own building.
False flags?
False flags are when they try to say that this thing happened, and this is their rallying cry behind why we should go and do this. I.e., the Nazis, their false flag was they said that these like Bolshevik and Russian immigrants and obviously Jewish background people have burned this building down. So this is why people should turn power over to the Nazis. And everybody was enraged, even though there were people of the Nazi Party that was found down at the thing when it happened. They were found at the scene, and a lot of people said they smelled like diesel fuel and all this other stuff like that. But
Hitler did that. Exactly. Hitler did that. He blew up his own building, and then he staged this false flag thing and said somebody else did it, which said the Jews. And then so that's the rally why we're supposed to go after them. I mean, I recently watched, because I have about 9 or 10 movies on 9/11. And, I watched that in slow motion. I always felt like when those buildings collapsed, that was like an implosion. But when I saw it in slow motion, you could see as the top of the building is coming down, then right below it, before that dust cloud could get to the next part, you could see an explosion. You could see how some burst out, how like some of the bricks would burst out, which that would be, because when you're doing an implosion, you start at the top and then it explodes, and then the next level explodes however far down, 30, 50 feet or whatever, then it explodes. And so before that top part of that building got to that next explosion, you could see how it would burst out. And then all of a sudden, then that would start collapsing. Because like you were saying, chemically, it's impossible. You know, if you were to take some metal, and like how the iron workers or whatever, if you took a 10-foot piece of iron or steel or whatever and melted, heated it up one end, just a tip of it, at 1,000 degrees, 2, 4, 5,000 degrees, it wouldn't be that hot on the other end at 10 foot. So if this plane with that diesel fuel, that jet fuel, it's not hot enough to melt that and that just come down however tall that building was, however many stories it was. Which I've been in that building.
I agree. I mean, I watched certain documentaries on this, and I do agree with that. Like we were saying, seeing everything in slow-mo. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later because Logic's actually going to bring up what he researched about that. I also want to say hi, Char. You're here?
Hi, guys. Thanks for being so patient. Had a few setbacks, but I'm so delighted to be here. I'm excited about tonight's show. And thanks, caller, for your theory there.
Yeah, and Char, you said you were bringing up something with Bobby Christina. I'm kind of interested in what that's going to be because I didn't know there were any conspiracy theories going on with her death.
Yes, sadly there is, Kai. Yeah, so whenever you guys are ready for that part of this segment, I'd love to just jump in there with that.
Okay. We're actually going to go and pay the bill with a short commercial break. Caller, I'm going to go ahead and put you back on hold, and if anybody who's listening wants to speak, go ahead and hit 1, and we'll actually bring you on the air to say your piece. Caller, thank you so much for bringing up the topics that you did. I'm going to go ahead and put you back on hold, okay?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, so we're going to go to a commercial break, and after that, I'm going to go ahead and read the top 8 conspiracy theories that are turning out to be true.
Sing your heart out. Visit the Singing Megastore and do what you love the most in style. SingingMegastore.com, your only destination for singing resources covering musical categories including rock, pop, classical, musical theater, jazz and blues, Christian, alternative, teaching, and career guides. SingingMegastore.com. Calling out professionals, teachers, students, and anyone who loves singing to join the most updated online store with music products at the lowest prices. SingingMegastore.com. Love of singing.
Kai here from No Conduct Radio. I hope y'all are enjoying our show tonight. Y'all got to check out this really cute kids book called Penny and the Big Dinosaur. It's about a 7-year-old girl who discovers a big dinosaur while on a camping trip. She wants to take it home as a pet, but her mom doesn't allow her. I mean, seriously, would you allow your kid to bring home a dinosaur? Well, her mom doesn't allow her because she simply just doesn't believe her. The dinosaur then gives Penny and her mom a ride of their lives just to prove that she's real. So y'all should check this out. I think it's really cute. It's really funny. You could actually find it on iTunes. So you would search Penny, that's Pennie, Penny and the Big Dinosaur, and download it. Well, purchase it off of iTunes and then download it, obviously. Or you could search it on Facebook at Penny and the Big Dinosaur. Again, Penny is spelled Pennie. I suggest y'all go check it out.
And we're back. I think the Penny and the Big Dinosaur was a cute little book, so I do think y'all should go check that out. And it will also be on our radio page, www.noconduct.com, so you could actually go and check it out there, purchase it, and read it to your kids. Okay, so before the break, we were saying that what I'm going to do is go ahead and read the top 8 conspiracy theories that are turning out to be true. And Logic is probably more familiar with these than I am. So I'm going to say the first one is the black budget. Have you ever heard of that?
The black budget?
The black budget.
Well, describe it. I might know it in another way.
It says prior to Edward Snowden, the former NSA employee who leaked classified information, if you told somebody you thought there existed what seems to be a separate civilization, a part of humanity that broke off in secret and is thousands, if not millions of years more advanced than the mainstream academic, scientific, technical world, there is absolutely no doubt you would have been brushed off as a crazy conspiracy theorist. So have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
I never heard of that too. I think one of our listeners have heard of that. Hold on.
Yes.
Okay.
Listener ended in 4336.
The president, he pretty much has control of that budget.
So you heard about the conspiracy with the black budget?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Like I said, the president. Go ahead.
I was going to say, the rest of the article says, but when Snowden leaked the very first documentation proving the existence of clandestine black budget operations, that all changed. Despite these recent leaks, many are still unaware of the black budget world and the fact that it has been investigated and talked about before these leaks. Yeah, I've never heard of it. So
it's
apparently,
probably, the Manhattan Project, stuff like that.
Dwight Eisenhower is the one who said something about it. And what were you saying, caller?
Something like maybe the Manhattan Project, something like, Area 57 out there in Nevada, stuff like that. That other place out in New Mexico. I would think it's more things like that.
I don't think it has anything to do with that, caller. And excuse me for interrupting, and I'm not in agreement with you, and let me tell you why. There are other theories out there. There's a theory called The Secret, which is actually an ancient manuscript, and it's really a way of life from hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 years ago. But I believe there's a secret society of people that do live a certain way, and I can say that they may live more intelligently because they may have actually found some other higher intelligence that we haven't been introduced to. And a lot of these people do form societies that were originally formed within our government infrastructure. So just because we're not aware of something doesn't mean it's not happening, but there's always someone that's higher, greater, and mightier that knows something else. But I don't think it has anything to do. Area 51, that whole theory, which may be on Kai's conspiracy list, is about the aliens that landed, in Area 51 and how the government covers that up. I mean, we all know that that's happened. But I believe that this is literally a society of people who have existed and still do, that are making some of the major decisions about our country behind the scenes, as well as some that do have some extra intelligence, higher intelligence than we do, based on some ancient beliefs that maybe all of us are not aware of. That's what I believe.
Speaking of the banking elite, that's who runs this country, the banking elite.
Okay,
that's who behind the.
Well, that's kind of apples and oranges. I think we're getting off the rails here. Personally, with this black budget thing that you're talking about, I think what they're basically saying is that there is supposedly a small group or a small percentage of the planet that millions of years are beyond us. To me, I don't know if that makes any sense to me, because if that's the case, then why would they still be here? They would have obviously found the technology to leave, you know what I'm saying? So as far as Area 51,
I agree with that.
People say that that's about aliens. I think it's just merely a top secret base where they work on new planes and do different things like that. I don't think there's a group of aliens there hanging out with scientists and figuring out how to, build the next SR-71 or something. I don't think it's that deep, because there's a plane that takes off from like LA and lands in Area 51's private airport. So it's not a secret. It's just you don't know what's going on there, and it's none. As far as the government is saying, it's none of your business. Same thing with NASA.
That's what I'm speaking of.
What's that?
Excuse me, sir. I hate to be interrupted, but that's what I'm speaking of. I don't think it's dealing with aliens and people who are more sophisticated. I just think it's a budget that's not on the budget.
But there's the whole budget.
It's run by the president.
The whole budget is not on. It's not on the record. I mean, if anybody asks for what the defense budget is paying for, they're not going to tell you. So it's like for people to say that there's some secret thing. If there was, we would never know it, because how do we don't even know how much the government gets in taxes every year. We don't know. It's trillions. It's definitely trillions of dollars, but we have no idea why we're in debt, because we don't know what they're spending the money on. Not even NASA will answer questions for citizens, and we pay for all of this. The government and everything, that's our money. So they should be telling us, but they don't. So for people to think like there is some group of the population that's living like on a Star Trek level, where they're beaming all over the place, and because they're just that highly, they wouldn't be here. It doesn't make any sense. They wouldn't be here.
I don't believe that either.
Okay, but we're talking about two different things. Excuse me, we're talking about two different things. The caller stated that he said something about Area 51. What I'm saying is that Area 51 is its own separate conspiracy theory that's dealing with space aliens that were covered up, that there was a crash, one or two, more than one likely, that was covered up by the government. That is entirely separate from the black budget theory. That's all I'm saying. Now, as far as
that's in that budget. I'm saying things like that are in that budget. I'm not speaking of what goes on at Area 51 or 57.
Oh, okay.
I'm just thinking things like that and the Manhattan Project and other things like that are in this black budget. The regular budget that they put out, they tell you what the GDP is and stuff. That's some of those things are top secret that the president deals with. And like you said, you're just not going to know about it. There's so many things that they're doing that you don't know, and they're never going to tell you. Maybe you might find out 10 years later.
They figure basically it's not our business, you know.
And I'm thinking those are the type things that are in that budget. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Let me read off the rest of this list. Obviously 9/11 is on here. I mean, you can't have a conspiracy theory list without 9/11. UFOs are on here. I believe there are unidentified flying objects. If they're aliens, that's where I disagree. But I believe, obviously, there are UFOs, which goes into the whole black budget theory, which is, a budget that we don't need to know about. Obviously, the government is continuously building different flying crafts, and, they're not going to tell us about it. So we see it in the air. It looks like a flying saucer, and we're going to be like, oh, UFO aliens. So that's what I think about it. GEO engineering and solar radiation management via stratospheric spraying. I just want to say, what the hell? What?
I think that's a chem spray. That's what they're talking about, chemical spraying, chem sprays.
Right.
Chemtrails, I'm sorry. Chemtrails.
Yeah. You have fracking. The fracking is go ahead, I'm sorry.
They're saying this idea is far from a conspiracy theory. Some of the candidate particles to spray in the air are sulfate, sulfuric acid, sulfur dioxide, titanium dioxide, silicon carbide, calcium carbonate, alumina, silica, zinc oxide. So they're saying that's what is being sprayed in the air. But the question is, are these programs operational? So that's what they're asking. Was the weather actually modified due to this issue? What were you going to say, Char?
Yes, absolutely, Kai, and I want to say that as well. But first of all, regarding the chemtrails, the original concept was that, of course, they do have to spray pesticides over fields, and and they drop from the planes. But what happened was the government or whoever's behind that has found a clever way of slowly poisoning its own people. And the way you know the difference between the chemtrails and just the spraying that's generally done, for the crops. You can tell because there's certain types of patterns that cannot be identified that are up there in the air when they're doing this massive spraying. And what happens is that this slow poisoning of our nation is part of the control. This is what the government wants. But as far as what you were just saying something else, I wanted to agree with you on that. Whether it was
the UFOs.
No, it wasn't that. No, it was something.
Oh, if this is the reason why the weather changed.
Oh yes, absolutely. So naturally, if you're spraying certain types of chemicals in the air, of course it can affect the weather, and naturally it does have something to do with certain types of the formations of storms and different weather patterns because it's all geology at the end of the day, but. That's not the concept. The concept with the chemtrails is a conspiracy, and it is a cover-up, and it is, I believe, is part of a slow poisoning of our nation, and they're using it at, they're saying that they're spraying fields. How do you know the difference? If you're looking up in the sky, how are you supposed to know the difference? And who can really decipher some of these, some of the patterns that are going from these planes, when they're spraying? I mean, but I totally believe that is definitely one of our conspiracy theories, and it's actually something that everyone should watch out for and really be aware of, because it's actually going to increase in a lot more areas, and it's something that you should definitely be concerned about. You don't know what's dropping from those planes.
There are two others. The one other kind that you said, the GMOs, the poisoning in the food, and the other is the fracking. They're ruining the water. That fracking going on in North Dakota and wherever else.
Yeah. Colorado.
Yeah. I want to say hi, Oran. Oran's on now.
Oh, hi, Oran.
Hello. I am so sorry. I'm having internet troubles as usual.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
No problem.
Just don't ever let it happen again. No, just kidding. How was your week? How was your week?
You know what? Actually, I have been so busy that it's been a month. Actually, my week has been a month long. So it's been more than productive. Let's say that for sure.
Okay, well, Owen, we have a caller who's been really interesting. Caller, where are you from, please?
Well, originally I'm from Augusta, Georgia. However, right now I'm in Macon, Georgia.
Macon, Georgia?
M-A-C-O-N, Macon.
That's a beautiful area down in there.
Yeah, they're having thunderstorms right now. Maybe that them chemtrails got a little something to do with it, because they were very loud.
All right, let me go over the rest of the list, because we have to get to what Logic is talking about. Tonight's show is actually 2 hours, because I figured it would be a really interesting topic. So the next one on the list is a small group of elite people and the corporations they run that own everything, which I think I was watching something about that just the other day. I was watching something about that actually today. It was a YouTube video, and they were talking about the 1%, which actually owns like 85%. So yeah, that was very interesting to watch. And people like to live in ignorance. You have to understand there are people who run the world. They do. So it's not us. Water fluoridization. So apparently that's a conspiracy theory. I mean, everybody knows there's fluoride in the water, but how is that a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, but they've increased the dosage, and they know that a certain amount of fluoride, once again, this is a slow poisoning of the American people. Just like with the chemtrails, there's so many different ways to do this. The government knows what they're doing. And when I say the government, I'm not blaming any particular person in government, because it all acts as a body. But at the end of the day, I feel like sometimes our own government is against us. I feel like they use us for experimentation purposes. I don't know if it's for the concept of eventually taking us out, or maybe genocide and taking out certain, ethnic groups of people. I'm not really sure. But there was never an issue with fluoride when you were growing up as a child. I mean, when you were, for those that are a little bit older, when you were in school, in elementary school, you would actually have like a field day or a class where they would teach you how to use toothpaste and give you fluoride toothpaste to take home and learn how to brush your teeth. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, so but that was never an issue.
They do it now at the dentist. So you have fluoride in the water, then at the dentist you get fluoride toothpaste, then you get fluoride mouthwash, and everything is just like fluoride, and not many people know that you can't actually use that much fluoride. If you're getting fluoride in your water, that's actually enough. You shouldn't have fluoride toothpaste or fluoride in your mouthwash. But I didn't know all of this until after I had a kid and I started researching myself. I just, did whatever. The next thing is over unity energy. Despite many people opposing this idea or constantly citing the law of conservation of energy, multiple papers have been published in various peer-reviewed journals showing that, yes, extracting energy from the vacuum is possible. Logic, can you explain?
You're talking about 0-point energy?
I have no idea what they're talking about.
Basically, there is ways to extract energy from just the atomic matter that's in the air. So, i.e., you don't need nuclear isotopes and solar power and wind power, which a lot of people like that because it's green, but they don't know how destructive wind power and solar power is to the environment. But that being said, there has been, because solar, wind energy the fan blades that spin, they use massive amounts of oil, and it's a constant noise that has been. There's a government ordinance now that it can only be a certain amount of distance away from people because it will drive you into psychosis. It will make it crazy, the sound. And also, the fan blades, you cannot be close enough to where the blades will pass in front of the sunlight where you live, because that constant strobe effect will also make you go crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
If you have epilepsy,
that's not destructive to society.
What's that?
You said it's not destructive to society? I mean, from what he's saying, it is destructive. People walking around going crazy.
Well, that's if you choose to place one in your
people are on farms. These people are
Wait a minute.
Hold on. Too many people.
Let me finish what I was saying. Anyway, these are actual studies that has been done, and it changed the way that they can put these things up. But also the oils and things that are needed to lubricate the system inside, it takes oil. So it's like it is wind, but it's still using oil and all of those things that it would use for the things that are already destroying the environment anyway. Solar energy takes up a lot of space. They have to mow down wherever they're at, and they just take up a lot of space when it comes to the panels that they're putting up, whether they're using mirrors or whatever. It takes a lot. And so these things aren't as small of a footprint in the environment as people think. But zero-point energy, there has been physicists and scientists that say it's possible to extract energy from just the atomic stuff that's in the air by itself, a constant renewable energy source.
Speaking of that energy, Logic, you sent me a video. I think this was 2 weeks ago, of some guy, I think he was in the 70s, who made energy, or I can't remember what it was. You remember he was like, he had stuff floating in air, and he made stuff into magnets and stuff like that, remember?
Oh, yeah. I have to look. I forgot his name, but this was back in the 70s, the late 70s. There was a scientist that found a way to bend metals and stuff he found a way to harness the magnetic sphere, like the magnetic,
the field of the magnetic.
Yeah, there you go, field.
Yeah.
The magnetic field in on the planet, he found a way to use it, harness it, and also make things do something on an atomic level that they normally wouldn't be able to do, which is like be able to pass other metals through metal and not shear break or use heat, so it was,
So, I mean, sometime this week we're going to post it to our Facebook page, No Conduct Radio. That was very interesting to see. And then my question was, like, why aren't we using that? But apparently, was it him and his notes just suddenly disappeared? That's what happened?
No, it wasn't him. He kind of went into obscurity. The government was talking to him for a while, but then people stopped hearing anything from him, so either the
But Logic, how do you know he wasn't taken out? Anytime you're on to something, some knowledge, some information that's top secret or that could enlighten the Americans or the people of the nation, don't you realize that there's probably more? Well, it's possible that this man didn't just happen to just become very quiet because he went on a sabbatical in Tahiti for 6 years or whatever.
Well, I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Just because you don't hear from him doesn't mean he got taken out.
Well, that's true, but you still have to wonder, look at what he was embarking upon. You have to also think, because that's why it's a conspiracy theory. Otherwise, it wouldn't even matter. The government's only concerned when there's a breakthrough and when there's information that can be leaked to the American public, which they always want to keep us in the dark. Everyone knows that. So I would be interested in maybe some of the callers or someone looking this person up, Googling him to see if they have a trail that connects back to his life, if he's still existing right now and exactly what he's doing. Maybe you can
I would
begin
go along with you on that. Star,
Okay.
I would go along with you on that because I think when somebody comes up with something innovative like that, you start stepping on these big money guys' toes, and something like that will cut somebody out of money, and then they just rub you out. I mean, you never know, but that's the way I would think, and maybe I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what happened to John F. Kennedy and stuff like that. If you're not following what the government is doing, or if you are coming up with innovative ideas that will lose the government money, you're not going to be seen.
It doesn't even have to be the government. People need to understand that if you
the
have
big money,
if you have a $1 billion conglomerate like General Electric, and you're doing something that's going to take them out of the loop in some way, like with the big business in energy right now is nuclear. So which is we use uranium. We use uranium, which is it's even more rare than diamonds. The uranium is, but we use that in order to make nuclear. The hot fusion happen. But there are people that came up with cold fusion that the whole
much
industry
cheaper
blocks them, which one of the methods is using thorium, which is a lot more abundant. You can find that on a beach somewhere if you dig deep enough, thorium. But they will not allow that cold fusion process to happen because that's going to take all of the people who are making money off of the nuclear, the hot fusion nuclear that's happening. They'll take them out of the loop. They can charge whatever they want because uranium is rare. They can just keep charging the government, whatever. So I understand that. But I'm just saying that this person in particular that she's talking about was a scientist in Russia, and he found a way to harness zero-point energy. And he just put it out there, like, whoever is willing to, invest, please contact me. Now, his family said a week later his place was cleaned out. They don't know what happened to him. But that was
Kai, why do you think John F. Kennedy was killed?
Well, as Logic said when we started the show, it was because he didn't want to go into the war, so he was killed. And somebody else took his place who was okay with going in the war. But we're going to talk about that one a little bit later. We're not going to talk about that one right now. Let me finish this list real quick. Okay, so GMOs is the next one on the list, genetically modified organisms, which that's out now, so that's not even a conspiracy theory anymore. And that's actually the last one. So these are conspiracy theories that have actually turned out to be true. We're still working on 9/11, which is one of the things we're going to talk about tonight, because they're still trying to get us to believe that, a ragtag group of guys who lived in tents, learned how to fly a plane and flew it directly over New York and into the World Trade Center. So they're still trying to figure that out, I guess.
Twice.
But that's the top 8 conspiracy theories that are turning out to be true. So, like I said, Logic. Go ahead.
I was going to say George Bush's first cousin took over the security department of the World Trade Center 2 months before that happened, 9/11. And
well, a lot of things happened right before 9/11, which is what Logic is going to talk about. So we're going to get into that pretty soon. All right, so Logic's going to talk about 9/11. Char is going to talk about Bobby Christina, which I'm very interested in. And Oran, what are you bringing to the table today? I know you have a conspiracy theory. Come on, Oran, don't let me down.
Come on, Oran. Oran's sitting there.
Actually, when it comes to conspiracy theories, I don't believe that they exist.
Really?
No, I just wanted to see the reaction I would get.
Wow.
Because that was going to get 20 minutes explaining that answer. Like, what?
Yeah, because I was like, really? Oran? All right, so what topic are you bringing tonight?
Actually, I have one that I decided to go a little bit a different direction with it, and I'm going to question. I've got about 40 different plots that were plots and conspiracy theories that turned out as well to be whether they were true or not. So I'm going to lead off with those when I get ready.
Okay, so you basically
You
have
have
a list of
40,
your own.
40,
There's
you have a list
33
of
of them
40?
that you'll see that turned out to be, and we won't talk about them in depth, but just see how many of them you recognize, you know about, that type of thing.
Okay. All right, so Char and Logic, who wants to go first? Char, is yours shorter than Logic's, you think?
Mine's probably shorter, but wow, I can see that it's shorter because honestly, there is definitely, this girl unfortunately passed just recently. But anyway, listen, I would like for Logic to head off on this because we're already in that, that realm of things. So Logic, please go on with your the 911 conspiracy.
In which let me say a funny story. I text Char telling her Logic's topic for tonight, and she texts me back, "Oh no! Oh my God!" So I thought she was talking about, because that was her original topic. So I just started laughing. Then she texts me back. She says, "Oh wait, I thought you were saying Logic had an issue tonight and he went to the hospital." I was like, what? No, 911, not 911.
Well, no. Originally last week just so everyone in Radio Land can hear this. Last week, our producer Kai, she did inform everyone that we would be talking about conspiracy theories tonight, Thursday the 5th. And anyway, so originally that was exactly what I wanted to talk about. So I thought it was kind of neat that, Logic and I have the same concept. But then when she put 9-11, I thought she meant he couldn't come on because I came on late tonight. I thought, oh my God, he had an emergency. Something happened. It was just so funny. I mean, oh my God. It's called text. They're never clear. A lot of them, Logic. I'm glad you're in one piece. You're just fine, right?
Yeah.
I thought something happened to you. It's just the way that it was. Okay. So
well, I think after he proves 9/11, after he proves 9/11 is not a conspiracy theory.
All right, we're ready.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I'm not going to get into too much detail because I wanted to also, talk about the lunar landing thing and also as well. But basically, the quick and ugly version, September 11th, there was a lot of video anomalies that were going on. A lot of people didn't realize this, but there was only about 4 news networks covering 9/11 stuff. All of them had the identical shot of the buildings, which they all were supposed to have their own choppers and that. So there should have been different angles and everything, but they were all using the same thing. Many videographers across the world have come together and said there are many inconsistencies with the video and the quality, and certain imagery seems to be imposed into shots that aren't really there. So, where there's smoke, there's fire. Why would you need to put things in shots that aren't really there if this is supposed to be a live event? There's a lot of different things that were going on. I suggest people actually go online and do some research to find out about the different weird things. And they all had blackouts around the same time when the second plane hit the tower. They all blacked out, and only, I think it was like 5 people down there were the video footage that they used to show people what happened. Which anyone, if you go to New York on any day, there's more than 5 people sitting around, and every phone that you get past 2005 has a camera. So it's like to think that no one got any footage and no one caught anything that went on except these 5 people who all had backgrounds in video editing and stuff like that is a bit strange. I'm also, I can't remember. Oh, yeah.
Then wasn't there
the pilot? What's that?
Go ahead. That pilot.
I was saying there's a bunch of pilots that have come out and said that it is physically impossible for passenger jets to fly sea level at 500 miles an hour. The jet engines that they have, it's not possible. They would need 6 times the amount of thrust that those are capable of putting out. to be able to travel at those speeds. But this is what NIST said happened. This was the official government, response to this, saying that the planes flew in the buildings at this amount of speed, and it's these are things that are not possible in physics. And the other thing that wasn't possible in physics is steel frame buildings coming down due to fire. It only happened 3 times in history, and all 3 times was on 9/11, which was World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7, that fell into its own footprint, which again is not physically possible unless you blow the basement. But if they're saying these buildings, fell due to fire because the planes flew in at the top, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. And there also should have been over 1.5 million tons of debris left over, but there wasn't. Most of that vaporized into that dust that we saw, which, again, how is it possible for steel, concrete, and all of that to be vaporized?
They found paper. They found paper that was in the building. That's what's crazy. How do you find paper and all this other stuff vaporized? There's metal and everything.
Well, you had a lot of floors and a lot of things that were inside desks and other stuff too that shielded that. And
but listen to what he's saying, Oran. If steel melted, why would paper survive? That doesn't make sense.
Because if you have the steel melting in one portion of the building, but where paper got blown out of windows
to melt
at the
the
bottom,
steel, then it's hot enough to burn a wooden desk, don't you think?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
What I'm saying,
that makes no sense to me. I don't see how the paper did. No.
I think Oran is trying to say it's probably in a different section, maybe that wasn't quote unquote as hot.
Whatever
that didn't fall.
But it doesn't make any difference. It's
found
hot,
people
it's hot.
too.
Paper burns.
Remember, they found
burns.
people too. So in the stairwells and whatnot. So I mean, it's obvious parts of the building did not get vaporized.
Again, this is getting into
same parts where the steel was still together, not melted, is probably where the paper came from.
Okay. What I'm saying is we're getting into semantics. My point being that pilots have said it's not possible. It's not possible in physics for that plane to fly that way at that speed. That's not possible. So that's one thing where physics failed that day. There's 3 buildings.
Right. It's the level that it was flying at when it
There's 3 buildings where physics failed again on that day. And then there's the other thing of it's not possible for an aluminum plane to fold into itself into a building and have no anything falling outside.
No remains.
No
remains.
So there was no bodies, there was no baggage, there was no luggage, there was no nothing. There was no seats, there wasn't anything. That just disappeared. That's not physically ever possible since we have been flying in planes. Unless they go into the water and we just can't find it. Usually when a plane crashes, we can definitely find the engine and the black box. None of the black box was found.
could be found.
Not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't they say that's because it got so hot?
But
No.
the black
Anyway,
box is designed so that it doesn't burn, it doesn't get destroyed, so that we do know what's going on
Exactly.
with, and both black boxes, both of them. What are the odds?
Okay, well, like I said, again, this is whatever. Moving on, the lunar landing. The thing with that is, like I said, the scientists that designed the rocket, the Saturn rocket, said that it would take a rocket beyond what humanity is capable to build right now. That it would take an astronomical amount of fuel. And then a lot of people don't know that outside the atmosphere of the Earth, there's a band of radiation called the Van Allen belt. And when they're putting up satellites, it's like, I think it's 1,000. It's 1,000 miles above the Earth. So when they're putting up satellites, they stay well within that 1,000-mile radius. You know what I mean? They stay within that when they're putting satellites and space stations and all that stuff. Low Earth orbit is what they call it. Now, the astronauts that have gone a little too far, which is like maybe 600 miles beyond Earth, when they're getting close to the Van Allen belt, the radiation is so high that it starts to pierce their skulls inside of their suits. So when they close their eyes, they have to strive seeing shooting stars. And that was the isotopes, or not the isotopes, the photons, hitting on the back of their retina so they can see it when their eyes are closed. So they said if you spend any considerable amount of time there, you'll die. So the reason that this contributes to the whole lunar landing thing is that they had to go through that twice. And none of the astronauts have said anything about having any issues. They did not have the proper shielding. That lamp that they had was like tin. It was very thin and very flimsy. It was not enough to stop radiation from coming in there and killing you. And NASA has not at all discussed how they overcame that or if they ever did. None of the astronauts have ever described it. And there's been plenty of photographers that say that the pictures that they have from the moon just are suspect. Just with the lighting and the shadows and everything, it shows different lighting sources that shouldn't exist because it should only be the sun. But go ahead. Somebody wanted to say something?
I would like to give you something that's actually going to excite you and several other people about this. I have some information on the lunar landing that may give some people some reason to believe that there might be a conspiracy theory there. In Flagstaff, Arizona, there's a place called the Cinders. And out there at the Cinders, it's a strip of volcanoes. It's in the same vicinity that Meteor Crater is. It's about 60 miles, 80 miles away from where Meteor Crater is. And there are many different little mini volcanoes out there that created this large area of nothing but cinders, and which is the broken up crust of the lava. Well, there's one particular part out there called Cinder Lake. And they call it Cinder Lake because it's flat and it's very, very long and very, very wide and no trees in it anywhere, but there's lots of divots and it's very, very, very similar to what you would see and expect to see on the moon. And we were out there, and we did a lot of racing and different things and motorcycles growing up out there. And my dad tells me that when they had the lunar moon landing, that he was one of the people that had to run the cables, the phone cables, out to the Cinder Lake for what they were going to do. And it was, they had it all set up out there. Now, whether or not they used that, and it was just there for in case they couldn't do video, I don't believe my dad was lying to me about that. I really don't. I mean, he ran the cables out there. Now, that's secondhand. That comes from somebody that's telling me that, even though he is my father. And I don't think he'd have any reason to lie about it.
There has been a lot of people that did the same thing, where there's a place in Arizona and another one in New Mexico where it looked a lot like the Sea of Tranquility where they supposedly landed.
But he actually said he ran the cables out there, and that's almost it's a 20-mile drive from the city out to where that's at, and it's if in fact that happened, why did they do that? Was it just in case they couldn't get video from the moon? That's what they said.
I was going to say that could be their excuse that, just in case. Your dad ran cables, but he doesn't know anything beyond that. So that could just be what they say about it.
But
what's the purpose of all that?
It happened.
What's the purpose of faking going to the moon? What's the purpose of bringing down the world trade?
The purpose of the moon was we were in the race to get there.
The purpose of the space race was meant to bankrupt the USSR, so they would not be a power that the United States would have to worry about. As far as the Trade Center coming down, there's already been done.
Because they want to.
Wait, hold on, Char. Hold on, Char.
As far as the Trade Center, there has been plenty of people that have went on record to say the vault underneath the Trade Center. A lot of people don't know this. The Trade Center was also a bank for a lot of countries, and they had their money in gold.
Yeah, the gold.
There was over there was over like $7 trillion that was missing.
Wow.
Well, they stole it, yeah, because they said eventually they found some vehicles abandoned, a ways away from that. Like
no,
all of a sudden
it was only one truck, and it was stuck underneath this girder at the trade center that was on its way out. It was a dump truck full of gold bullion, and it was just stuck, so they had to leave it. The passenger door was wide open, and when they did the excavation, they said all of the vault doors were wide open and empty.
Okay.
Well,
but
another reason that 9/11 could have happened, didn't they want us basically to fund this current war that's going on in Afghanistan and everything like that, getting bin Laden, quote unquote, all this stuff? They wanted the backing of the American people, didn't they?
It was the same thought process behind Pearl Harbor happening, which is a culminating event, making all of the Americans feel we need to get revenge for this thing that happened. So, if everything was cool and smooth, if it wasn't a problem, then
Go ahead,
that's not revenge.
Hold on, Char.
Go ahead.
I think all of those wars were staged. WWII.
Okay, 1 second. Let Logic finish. 1 second. Go ahead, Logic.
I was just saying, if it wasn't a problem going on, more than likely American people would not want to just, out of the ordinary, just go to war for no reason. It would be a hard sell. So if something like 9/11 happened, everybody, no matter what walk of life, rich, poor, black, white, they would all want to go to war and get whoever did this. So.
And that's exactly what happened. And then, Char, what were you going to say?
Okay, I'm all over the place now because I'm agreeing with a couple of theories. A couple of things are just spinning around, and I can't seem to jump in there. So let me just say this. I mean, let that be the reason, but I don't see how that is the reason. It doesn't take all of that. Okay, we've had wars for reasons that never mattered. So why is it that you have to blow up, this huge, this monumental icon in the United States, in New York City, which people, they look at that, they say this represents freedom and liberty, just the city itself. I don't believe that at all. There's a couple of theories here, guys. I believe there was gold at the bottom. There was vaults there at the bottom. Of course, it's an easy diversion to cause pandemonium and hysteria within the people so that you can then, take the gold out. But that could only take how many minutes to get so many Brinks trucks there to get the gold out? So that makes no sense. And why would you want to destroy your own people to say, okay, now we have a reason to go destroy other people and take back what was ours?
Why would you want to send innocent kids to go off to Vietnam to fight Asians that had nothing to do with us? You know how many people died there? Like, that's nothing new that people will sacrifice, young men, that are usually poor, young men that have nothing to do with their plans and schemes. They will constantly, always sacrifice you if it means that they're going to get what they want. As far as the Trade Center, you would think that bringing that down would be a big thing, but honestly, none of their people were ever in harm's way. Two,
what do you mean none of them? But be more specific, because
the CIA was not in the building. The CIA.
Wait, let her ask her question. What is she saying?
But he kind of said, but you're right. Okay, so here's what I'm asking you. Okay, so unfortunately with Vietnam, you're right. There's lots of innocent children, women and children that were killed, that were unfortunately, that perished. But what I'm saying is this: but how does that bring a message to kill all of these other innocent people before we even go to war?
Char, listen, it's not about a message. War equals money. Just like
before the war. Before the war, there's other ways to do it, is what I'm saying. We didn't have to bring buildings down. That's why I don't think it has anything to do with that.
Let me say there's no conduct. You have the banking elite who own and control the military-industrial complex, who they make money. They make profits and money by, off the government. If anybody goes to war, they fund both sides, and that's how they make money. They make more money than, the Federal Reserve is owned by the banking elite. Now, they started in 1913. The United States got away from England to get away from this kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden, Woodrow Wilson got tricked into passing that Federal Reserve Act.
Caller, stay focused on what she's saying, because I know where you're going.
Okay.
Stay focused on what you're saying.
Okay, well, I think the military-industrial complex, they start these wars, like you said, Pearl Harbor. They baited them. They did something, and they wanted Japan to strike first. Okay, so then now everybody will get into it. So then they did this with the world trade to get us to go into that, and therefore they can make more money. It used to be.
Think about it this way.
Okay.
When we went to Iraq, there was a lot of soldiers dying. A lot of soldiers dying over there. Did you see them showing footage of dead soldiers in the United States? Did you see that?
No.
They didn't show that. But now if you go back to the Trade Center, they showed the entire thing come down, people covered everybody.
And people jumping out windows. I was actually right there on the college here. I was right there.
They focus on what I'm saying here. Pearl Harbor, they allowed that attack to happen because Australia warned the United States that Japan was heading that way. They covered it with a lot of media coverage showing the burning boats, people floating in the water. That was meant for people to have an emotional... Listen, just focus on what I'm saying. I'm trying to kind of connect this for you. If you see, if the average person sees dead bodies, things burning, this was a nation that attacked us. It's an emotional response. When you will not be logical at that point. So you're going to be emotional. So when the government says, we have found out who did this and we will return with force, and everyone will be behind them. Now, is it about a message for them? No, because you have people, billionaire industries, that make drones, that make tanks, that make ammunition, guns, and all of these things. If we're not at a time of war, they're not making as much money as possible. They're not getting these billion-dollar contracts and making money. Even when the stock market crashes, billionaires know how to make money off of that. That's not a bad thing for everybody if the stock market crashes. So they have designed a way and figured out a way for death and destruction for the country to make them money regardless of which way it goes. So if we're in a time of peace, that's the only time that they're not making money.
Okay.
That's the point.
So do you understand now, Char?
Yes, absolutely. Very well said, Logic. Yes, absolutely, I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay. And so, Logic, so you're saying the moon landing is a hoax. Oran is backing you up on that.
I'm just saying it's fishy. I don't know. I mean, it seems weird.
Actually, I think we went to the moon. I haven't looked at it. I just don't. Why would they need that there? But I think we possibly did go to the moon. Although I do wonder about this radiation makes sense with what he's saying. And I wouldn't have put it past the government to fake something like that back then, because they didn't have that much technology. It's really easy to fool people. And believe me, they've been doing it for a long time.
They're faking all space exploration right now?
No. I think it's just the moon. I think that they put satellites in space, so they can do that. But here's the thing. We supposedly did that in the 60s when, like Oran said, we didn't have much technology. That was in the 60s we did that. Why haven't we been back since? This is 2015. They're talking about maybe in 2020 or 2025 going back. Why would we have to wait that long if we already did it 40 years ago?
Yeah,
but maybe no one cares. Maybe nobody cares, Logic. Well, who cares? Maybe they don't care. We've already proved.
Who cares about space stations?
This is a whole new generation. Of course we care.
No, but we've already done it, so maybe that's why we haven't gone back till now, and so maybe now it matters. I mean,
okay, let me bring up something. The caller brought up earlier. Caller brought up earlier that we sent a satellite to Pluto. Why would we care more about Pluto than the moon, which we see the moon every single day. You know what I'm saying? Why would we care about sending something to Pluto, which we don't even consider Pluto a planet anymore? Why do we care what it looks like? It's a rock that's furthest away from the sun. That's all we know.
Well, I agree with that caller. I missed that caller, but I agree with that because they spent billions of dollars to get there, and the pictures were probably even more costly to our budget for just a couple of seconds of a few pictures. So I really don't get that. I mean, you're right. I just don't. But I still don't see why it would make any sense to go through all of that, you know, to land on the moon and to have this amazing accomplishment that's never happened before to say that it didn't happen. That makes no sense to me. But why would go to Pluto, I don't know. Anyone can look this up and see the pictures. But that's it. You're just looking at pictures. But it costs billions of dollars to take these photos for a few split seconds, and it will probably never happen again.
Exactly.
And now we wonder why we're in a deficit and our budget's in a deficit. We wonder about that.
Well, I'll tell you this: NASA eats up billions of dollars of the government's money that we as citizens cannot ask them, just like any other agency. We can't ask them what they're spending our money on. So if they're not going to the moon, you know, then people are not really going to care what they're doing, and the budget is going to get smaller. So it's just a hustle to me.
Are you aware that we could solve our energy problem with what's on the moon? That 1 yard of dirt on the moon would power a city the size of Houston for 3 years.
Where's this coming from?
I never heard of that.
Is the caller laughing, Clive?
I think the caller's cracking up.
Oran, where did you get this from? Where did you hear that?
Okay, now we've got us all laughing. Go ahead, Oran.
All right,
Oran.
All right, now. This
Go ahead,
is
Oran.
something that I will have to research and find out. I do remember this was a legitimate thing. It wasn't. It was something that I watched on the History Channel or one of the television things, and I will find it. But there's a radiation that goes through from the sun and different things like what we were talking about earlier. I mean, there's so much energy that comes from the sun, and there's a particular element that the moon doesn't have an atmosphere, and so the dirt of the moon has been collecting this particular element that gets sent out by the sun for all these millennia. And that particular element, if it is taken and done something with, you're able to use it for the energy here on the Earth. And it's super simple, but the cost to get it would
be even more expensive than finding uranium. Like, you would have to blast off to the moon, mine it, and then bring it back. Like,
yeah,
exactly.
And you know where it was? I think it was with one of that rich guy that did the trip around in the outer atmosphere. The real rich Bryant, something like that.
I know who you're talking about. Well,
talking about
before you continue, let me ask this question. Hold on. Let me ask this question. Some rich guy decided to spend like $1 billion. I can't remember how much it was just to go up out in space. But my question is, so like y'all are saying, and call me stupid, but y'all are saying like right now that radiation ring shouldn't be an issue because we have the technology so that it shouldn't quote unquote penetrate it?
We still don't.
Okay,
because it requires so much, protection to get through that and not die.
So then my question is, so was that rich guy that was, that paid his money to go up there, was he below that radiation belt?
Yes.
If he did a spacewalk, yeah, that's well below the Van Allen belt.
Van Allen belt. Okay.
This is between here and the moon, but past about, I don't know, 100 miles past.
It's 1,000 miles up. That's when it starts. And you have to go through that to get to the moon.
But the better question is, if you have enough money, how do you know that? If you have enough money, you might feel like you can go as far as you want to go.
You can.
Are you speaking of Richard Branson?
Where does it end? So where does it end?
Richard Branson. Thank you, my friend.
The music mogul.
Yes.
Right.
But
they
where does it
they'll
end
tell
just
you,
because you have $1 billion?
Sure, they'll tell you beforehand how high up they're sending you. So, I mean, he gave them his money. They're like, this is how high up you're going. for your safety or whatever BS reason they gave him. But they're like, this is how high up you're going. So, maybe it's because they couldn't pass that radiation belt. But they would have given him say, hey, for security reasons or for your health reasons or whatever, we really can't shoot you up further than 1,000 miles above the atmosphere or whatever, so.
But it wasn't like he built his own rocket. I see what you're saying. Just because you have $1 billion doesn't mean you just decide I'm just going to go to the moon or go wherever. Okay.
Well, he promised people he was going to send them, to the moon, and you're going to pay this amount of money or whatever. But in essence, I guess the moon has to be closer to the sun than Earth for it to get this, get saturated like this. So
but my point.
No, that's just the fact that it doesn't have an atmosphere.
It just doesn't have atmosphere is what it is. But how would they know that if they haven't been to the moon? Okay,
well,
I mean,
they
something up there and test it. It send the information back to us. A probe.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Satellite probes, all that stuff. They've sent unmanned
technology, right? Because they do that. So that wouldn't have been hard to do. They could have done that in the 80s.
Yeah, sending unmanned probes, that's no big deal. It's sending people out there. That's the issue,
Yeah, sending people through this thing is the issue. And like I said, these the cosmonauts and stuff that went up there that were just only putting satellites out there, when they drifted a little too close, they were getting radiation in their skull. So it's very powerful. It will.
And all they were doing was put in satellites?
Yeah, they just drifted too close. They weren't even trying to go through it. It was just they came within 600 miles of it, and they were already having an effect.
Wow. All right, so the 9/11 thing, and I know we're jumping back and forth, but Logic had 2 conspiracy theories, and then we're going to go into Char's. The 9/11 thing, one of the things that I wanted to point out is with the video that was shown, I did watch something. I did watch a documentary on 9/11, and as Logic stated before, each news station that played these clips, it was the exact same clips. And then some videographers, they were showing that, like, the New York skyline, it was actually shifting, like a building would go from the left to the right in the same frame. So, they showed that these are signs that the video was edited. And no other news outlet around the world, I think one on BBC or something like that, had the exact same clip. And then if you watch like a candid video, like one candid video that was out there, when the plane supposedly went overhead, nobody looked up. It wasn't until the building exploded out that everybody was like, oh, they weren't looking up. But now if you even live remotely close to an airport, you know how loud those planes are. Let alone it flying over your head in New York, you would have looked up. So that's one of the things that stuck out to me. Like, the plane was flying overhead, nobody had a reaction at all. They were just talking like, blah, 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 blah. And then you saw the building explode, and that's when everybody had a reaction. So,
But Carl, let me say
that's totally true.
Wait, let me hear what Char has to say. Go ahead, Char.
I watched that plane. The first plane hit at 9:47 a.m. on September 11th. I watched that plane when it hit. So I didn't hear it before that, but when it went into that building, I actually could clearly see it at exactly that time. So I don't know if that's
in New York.
I was in New Jersey, right there in the harbor. I can see everything, and so we had to be evacuated from all of our buildings here because I was actually, and it's funny because I was in Jersey City. And our accounts were in Tribeca with Battery Park, which is exactly where it happened. But because they're connected, it's like right there. I was just in the midst of the I can see people jumping and all. But all I'm saying is that when the first plane hit, believe me, I did not.
Jersey?
Absolutely. I'm right there at the edge. I'm at the edge. I can, don't laugh. I'm right there. I can see everything. Do you know it takes 4 minutes? Do you know it takes 4 minutes to get to the WTC? Well, I don't know if you know about the PATH train, but if you're in Jersey City, it takes exactly 4 minutes to get
to the PATH train.
That is amazing eyesight.
Yeah. It takes 4 minutes.
That is. I would like to say that, yes, I called the PATH train. I sketched the PATH train from Jersey, and I never really looked up at the World Trade because I would get off and walk around the corner, this and that, and go in the bottom of the World Trade and catch the train to go to work. But I was in Atlanta when that happened, and some guys from my job went to Jersey and worked, and And so they were up there. They saw it. Getting back to your point about nobody looked up, we spoke to them that day right after it happened. And these guys, they were at break. They were at a roach coach at a truck that sells the food to the construction workers. And they said, man, that plane sure is flying low. And these guys saw that plane. So.
Okay. Well, let me say this. On the documentary.
That's my case logic.
Hold on. On the documentary, it did say a couple people described something that looked like a plane, a small plane, or a missile. So there are missiles out there that can be mistaken for a plane, the way they're shaped. So you could have looked up and saw a small plane.
But it looks
going back to what was said earlier, I agree with that because nothing about the plane was found. No tail, no wing, no black box, no engine, no nothing.
Yeah, but you just said that your boss confirmed that it was a plane. So what was that? That plane went into another dimension? You just said.
I don't know. I'm just saying. Yes, they did. That's true. They
did. Now, here's another thing. This is a psychological effect as well. When people are told something over and over and over and over again, and
they believe it is what you're going to say.
They believe that they actually saw. Just like when people watch the movie Psycho, some people recall seeing red blood, but the whole movie Psycho is in black and white. But because they have been told over and over and over again, oh, the blood was so graphic or whatever, your mind will fill certain things into your memory. So even if you didn't see it, because you kept being bombarded with these images and they keep playing it over and over and over again, it has definitely been documented that people initially said they didn't see anything, all of a sudden were remembering this plane with such detail.
Logic, you're missing the point. This caller was not there. He knew people that were there. They were construction workers on a site. They saw what they believed to be, or wherever they were. They saw what they believed to be a plane, and I saw what I really truly believed to be a plane. And I was very close.
I'm telling you what I'm going to tell his friends. If there was a plane, those were the 2 times in history that a plane completely vanished.
The fact that were never found. That's true. Black box and the people. I mean,
that's a weird plane that you saw.
Okay, and then like I said, people have reported seeing a small plane. They said a small plane and or the 2 things that were said before it was pulled from the air was a small plane and a missile. So then they showed how a missile is shaped, and a missile can be mistaken for a small plane. Hence, this will describe like how y'all saw a plane and why nothing was found. Because in any kind of accident, you will find the black box. They created it so that you can find the black box. And 2, or was it actually 3 planes? Not even just the 2 that hit the World Trade. There was another one. So there's 3 planes in all of history. This is the time when you can't find a piece of the plane or the black box? Are you serious right now?
Or the people or the bodies. I don't think they ever found. The only bodies they found were the ones jumping, as far as I know. Or the ones that were
already in the building. There's nothing about the planes that took off. Nobody knows where those planes are. There's nothing about the planes that took off. There's nothing from the planes. There are no passenger seats. There's no luggage. You didn't see luggage. You should have seen luggage falling through the sky, clothes and everything falling through the sky. There's nothing.
Why haven't we given this Mythbusters yet?
I'm looking at it right now.
Mythbusters program.
Guys, but listen, what everyone's missing is that there are people that were accounted for on those flights. Okay, there were people that said goodbye to their families right before those planes blew up.
And if you paid attention to when it came out, a lot of people said it was weird because there was a dude that went up in the planes and tested that theory out. You can't get a connection traveling at 500 miles an hour, up high or down low because it's going too fast for any of the cellular towers to connect with your phone. In fact, if you go on a plane nowadays, they have phones that you can use. Now, if you can just use your cell phone, why wouldn't you just be able to use your cell phone? It doesn't make sense. 2, one dude called his mother. Let's say his name was John Smith. He called his mother and said, "Hi, Mom, this is John Smith. I'm on a plane. When's the last time you used your full name talking to your mother.
That's
I know
true.
I don't
remember
call
that.
my mom and say my full name. She knows who I am. I'll say blah, 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 or whatever, and I'll go.
I
It
saw
was
that.
very strange. There was no background noise. And then the mother...
And then the mother...
I said at gunpoint.
Go ahead, Logic. And then the mother...
Then the mother said, well, what are you talking about, or whatever. There was some mumbling she said she heard. And he said, you do believe me, Mom, right? It was just the whole exchange was strange. It was just weird.
Wow.
So those don't.
I'm looking at it right now, Mr. Logic. I'm looking at a clip, and the plane just went into the building, and it looks like a plane. It could be a missile. I mean, I'm not an authority on that.
The video? We've already said the videos.
Well, no, with the videos they've already been doctored, so there's nothing out there that you could prove. So
yeah,
if
well,
you're looking at the video,
like I said,
it's going to look like a plane.
Yeah, it does. But you know what? It looks relatively small. It looks small, and it goes into the building, and it just, but it looks like one, so that could be a missile. I mean, because it looks kind of small. And like I said, I don't know.
Basically, what I'm saying is there is no supporting evidence that shows that it was a plane. There is no supporting evidence, except for the videos that came out and 5 people who got it. Nobody else in the whole of New York City got that. There's no supporting evidence that showed it was a plane. And then I want to say based on that, just that, and nobody questioning it, because I'm pretty sure everybody's going to come back and say, oh, I can't believe No Conduct Radio is talking about 9/11 like it was a hoax. That's unpatriotic. And if you ever question anything, you're unpatriotic. Based on that, there became hatred of one religion with people who were American here and losing people in that same building. There became hatred of just one religion just based on that. And everybody said, yes, let's go to war and kill all those insurgents. Notice they're called insurgents. Go over there and kill all the insurgents, and that's it. So people made money off of this. And whenever you bring up this issue that it doesn't seem to be true, there's nothing supporting these supposed facts that are out there. Everybody like Char, how you were getting all heated about it, you're like, no, this is what happened. Why would the government kill their own people? This and this and this. And this is why people just don't question what's going on. And anybody who questions, they're called something negative, like conspiracy theorists. So people just think that,
Kai, can I ask you one question, Kai? Can I just ask you one question about this? How come no one has addressed this? Can I ask you this one question? Why has no one addressed the fact that there were hundreds of people on 3 different flights that said goodbye to their loved ones that morning on a certain flight number on a certain plane at a certain time, and they're no longer accounted for? So where are those people?
Hold on. Nobody said those planes weren't destroyed. They just weren't destroyed in the World Trade Center. Nobody said that.
All right.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up with one thought. All these pilots, there was supposed to be 19 of them, hijackers and whatever. They were all from Saudi Arabia, I think most of them. If we got attacked tomorrow, if 19 Koreans took over like trains or something and made them derail and blow up with dirty bombs all over the country in different areas, we would say Korea attacked us. If they were all Koreans, we would say Korea attacked us in some way. 19 Saudis took over planes, supposedly flew them in the Trade Center, flew them into the Pentagon, and we go to Iraq? And then Afghanistan after that? It doesn't make any sense.
That's because all Americans see is just the Middle East. Arabs attacked. They don't care where.
Oil.
It's strange. That's what I'm saying.
Oil. They were after oil. I met a young lady who was working over in Iraq, and she told me what they believed they were doing as the pipeline leaves out of Iraq going to wherever, they would drill at an angle and hit that pipeline. And so as Saddam Hussein would, check his oil, his bottom line at each night, and okay, I got this much oil, then all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's being siphoned off, not getting as much oil, And then that's when you start seeing all these fires in these oil fields. But she said she saw Halliburton, she saw 100 trucks lined up getting that oil. They went over there to steal the oil. That was it.
That's another thing. That's another thing. My point is this. I'm bringing it back to us as a nation. If 19 Brazilians did something, we would say Brazil attacked us. We would not see 19 Brazilian, apparently highly trained people that were able to outthink and outfight NORAD. We would not sit there and say, we got to go to Cuba and attack them. It doesn't make sense. The whole situation is stupid, and people don't question it because they just are basically doing what they're told. All these news outlets, they're all controlled by who? Rich people. These rich people are plugged into who? Other rich people. And a lot of people don't realize that, you know what a put option is in stock? Anybody knows what a put option is?
I'm somewhat familiar.
Put option is basically like you're gambling that this company is going to fail in this quarter. So I'm going to put a put option against Apple that their stocks are going to drop in the next quarter. So if that happens, you get money back because that put option actually happened, like, you know, the parameters in which you set happened.
Wow.
So there was they said it was a surge. It was 3 times higher than it ever was in the stock market, the put options against American Airlines and United. So a bunch of rich people knew something was going to happen. And going back to the Trade Center, when she said why would they take down this iconic thing, the Trade Center was losing a lot of money. They were a big problem for the Port Authority in New York because they were covered in the asbestos. They were well overdue to get that stripped, and that would have cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And people were no longer impressed with the Twin Towers. They weren't buying the offices in there to put their companies in there because it was an old building. But they were making less money. They cost so much that they had to do this asbestos stuff. They weren't making anything. So when the guy came and he bought it, I think his name was Bernstein or something. I can't remember. I got to look it up.
He put the insurance on it. He put that insurance on it.
Let me get to that. He bought it, and he specifically put in, I want insurance in case my building never gets destroyed, and I want it to pay off 3 times as much if it's a terrorist attack.
$7 billion. But he went to court and they only gave him $2 billion.
It doesn't matter. Whatever they gave him, it doesn't matter.
Whatever they gave him, it doesn't matter. But the point is, he specifically went back and rewrote the stipulations of the insurance, and when they sold it to him, they were like, "How are you going to get all this asbestos out of here? You know about the asbestos, right?" He said, I'll figure it out." He didn't have the money to do it, but now obviously he had the money because the building is gone. It doesn't. Whatever.
Why not just evacuate the building opposed to blowing it up and people in it?
Char, stop right there. Think about what you're saying before you finish it. Why would they evacuate the building? That would show that they knew something was coming.
Yep.
No, before that plan, there's a plan for everything. I'm saying if it was really an issue of the building being old and asbestos is too costly to get out and all of that, why not just evacuate the building? You know, I mean, come on. You don't have to kill innocent people.
I think the reason you don't understand is because these banking elite people are evil. They are very evil-minded people, and this plan has been going on for maybe 50 years or so, and it still hasn't culminated yet. Have you ever heard of how
it's not even about the banking elite. It's about if people don't, if it doesn't affect them,
exactly,
and their people, they don't care.
I'm pretty sure if their kids or family worked in that building that day, I'm pretty sure they called into work sick or something. Right. So their people wasn't in the building, but anybody else, they don't care about. Think about slavery, for instance. Not to get into slavery, but think about slavery. They don't care about slaves. They didn't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's not affecting you or yours, they don't care. Right. And their theory of why they just killed thousands of people, well, it always takes that one to benefit the thousands or the masses or however the saying goes. So that's how they're going to rationalize it. But anyways, off of that, let's go into Char's conspiracy theory, because I want to know what's going on with this Bobby Christina thing.
All right. Well, if we can take if we can have a moment of silence, but we can't do that on the radio. But it's a very sad, unfortunate issue here. There was a very young girl whose life was, I won't say sniped out, because sniped out is when someone literally just shoots you in the head. You don't expect it. Unfortunately, you're murdered or you're in a car accident. But here's the issue. The reason why I not only just believe, but I know this is the conspiracy theory, is because Bobby Christina, her mother was an icon in history. There's only so many people in history who have sold so many albums, whose voice was so angelic and so well received by every culture and every nation for so many years, and make billions of dollars and literally leave a mark on history. And she was a beautiful woman at that. Did she have issues? Yes, she did. But the reason why I know this is a conspiracy theory is because when this girl, unfortunately, when she first drowned, and if everyone can kind of go with me to that unfaithful day, I think it was about 3 months ago, approximately 3 months ago, Bobby Christina was found in exactly the same state as her mother. When her mother was, as they're saying right now, they're saying it was a drug overdose, so that's self-inflicted, so to speak, right? But here's the interesting thing. Bobby Christina had such a longing, for her mother, and she literally just never got over it, and she suffered greatly in so many different ways emotionally. But they're saying that, the first conspiracy is her drug dealer, and by the way, just so people are aware, according to what the information does provide, is that this poor girl, walked in the same footsteps as her mother and her father. And that just goes back to parenting, but that show was a few weeks ago. But what I'm saying is this. If you never let go of your mother, and you really believe that, you could be with her in peace one day, maybe you might decide to take, to just die in the same way that she did. But they say that it was her drug dealer just left the house, make a long story short, okay? Her drug dealer was some young guy. I hear he's wealthy or whatever. Very good friends with her fiance, if you will. There was another conspiracy that she was married to Nick Gordon. But anyway, that's another situation. But apparently the drug dealer just left the house. Well, they found Bobby Christina with her teeth knocked out. A lot of people don't realize this, Kai. But if you read some of the different articles, her teeth were apparently knocked out, and she was bruised. Now, if you fell in a bathtub, sure, you could bump your head and bruise yourself. But the greater question is, was it a drug overdose? Well, they say there was no drug found in her system. But the other theory is that maybe her boyfriend beat her up because of money, that he wanted to control the money and the assets that her very wealthy, successful, established icon mother left for her. Okay, and so that's a whole other theory. So that is the reason why I believe this is a conspiracy theory. What happened to this poor child? She was only, 22 years old, I believe, and she died tragically in exactly the same manner as her mother. And I believe that's what she wanted. But on the other hand, if someone killed you and that you can't speak beyond the grave, what really happened? Because right now, apparently, from what I understand, Nick Gordon was not allowed at the funeral, and there was quite a few different groups that were not permitted at the funeral because they were considered to be a part of her death, to have some hand in it. So if her death is not a conspiracy, would she just die and wouldn't she just rest in peace? So I know I'm not the only one that's heard this.
My question is, I'm going to make a statement. First of all, the statement is I don't think this is a conspiracy theory because, unfortunately, I know, she's a human being or whatever, but she wasn't important enough for it to be a conspiracy theory. She was just some famous people's child. She has not done anything. So where is the conspiracy as to, I'm going to kill her to get her money? Whitney Houston didn't say if Bobby Christina is out of the picture, this Gordon guy, whatever his name is, gets the money. So he kills her to what avail? You know what I'm saying? It could be, the theory could be that he killed her, but he tried to cover it up like a drug deal. But then again, who is he that everybody's going to run with this? He's nobody. He has no money. He can't pay people off for them to run with this idea. So if it turned out that he actually killed them or killed her, you know, the cops would have investigated and come out and say, okay, he killed her. So my whole thing is, I don't see how this is a conspiracy theory. She's not important enough. I mean, to society. I mean, you know, obviously she's important to her family and whatnot, but she's not important enough for somebody to knock her off and call it a conspiracy theory. There's nothing that could be gained from this.
That's not true, but that's not true, Kai. If you're following her life, okay, and it's a very short life indeed, I will say that. But Kai, she is important enough because she was the daughter of one of our greatest icons when it comes to entertainment and, you know, and all of that, in history. I mean, Michael Jackson is right up there. You know, come on. Yeah,
they were falsely married. They weren't correctly married. They were falsely or semi-married. He acted like they were married, so he thought he could get the money, but they weren't properly or correctly married.
My question is, what was she a threat to that somebody had to take her out? What was she? I don't understand.
Well, Char is saying it's the money. So both Char and Carla are saying it's the money. So the guy took her out to get the money, but he wasn't really married to her, so he's not getting anything. However, as I pointed out, he's not important enough, and he has no money to buy people off to go along with that story. So if it turned out that he actually did it, cops would have figured that out. Forensics would have figured that out and would have come out and say he actually killed Bobby Christina. So again,
I can't prove that she's dead. He was holding his breath on her being pulled off life support. Trust me, he was holding his breath. Now, as a matter of fact, it's so bad, Kai, that her fiance, who apparently it was an endearing love, which means that's the strongest form of love you could ever have without sacrificing yourself. Okay, literally. So he was not permitted to even, like, in her room while she was in the coma. Nick Gordon could not even appear there. He was on suicide watch for a while. He's been on a million talk shows talking about the fact that, look, I loved her mother so much that I got a tattoo of Whitney Houston on my arm. See, what you may not understand, Kai, is Whitney Houston, she all but adopted him legally. Okay, she emotionally adopted this boy when he was only 10 years old. And he was in his 20s when Bobby Christina passed. So he felt very much an allegiance to the family, and especially to Whitney. And Whitney gave her blessing to this man before she died, to take care of her daughter and to love her daughter. But he knew that Bobby Christina was worth millions, but he really didn't love her. But the whole conspiracy is that if she died in the way that she wanted to, in the bathtub as her mother did, or maybe a drug overdose, now it's like a two-part conspiracy on that, whether she was under the influence or not. Why were her teeth knocked out? Why was she bloody? And why does she have a black eye? There's a lot of people, Kai, who really cared a lot about this child that didn't even know her, because they don't want to see yet another, life sniped out too early at the hands of, unfortunately, this goes back to our parenting thing again. I hate to say illegitimate parents, but parents who would, in front of their child, do mounds and mounds of coke, and they've admitted it, okay, and all kinds of other drugs. So, unfortunately, what happened, she succumbed to the same type of drugs, if not worse. But it is a conspiracy. We're talking about someone who's worth billions of dollars. We're talking about a Hollywood icon's child. And as well as her father, who was well known well before Whitney was. And when you think about it, what happened to this girl? I don't think it's right for her to just be buried and, she slips under the radar as if nothing happened. Something happened, and to this day, we will never know unless anyone has ever come to speak beyond the grave and say what really happened to them. And so that's where the conspiracy, and there's lawyers right now that want to prosecute Nick Gordon, although this woman is unfortunately perished. Paula, do you have anything else to say regarding that? Because I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, I'm going to ask Oran.
I don't know anything about it, and I didn't follow it. I just, I thought maybe it was about 6 months ago. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I thought it was strange died the same way mother did. I did think that.
I don't know. I don't agree that it's a conspiracy theory. I gave my reasons. That's all I have to say about that. I don't think she's important enough. So, but hey, who am I?
I happen to agree with you on that. I don't think it is.
Yeah. All right. So,
how much do you know about it to say that? Do you not know anything about the story, or you don't have to be a fan of her mother's, but how much do you know about the actual story initially to say that you don't think that it is?
I mean, I'm a complete
I don't think anybody's
Whitney.
saying that it isn't weird. I mean, if you're asking if we think it's strange, yeah, there's a lot of strange things going on, but that's nothing new for the Whitney Houston household. There was always a bunch of strange things going on in there. At the end of the day, though, conspiracy theory means there is a collective group of people looking to make this thing happen and trick the public in order to gain what? She's dead. She didn't sing. She didn't dance. She's done.
Well, she did sing. Actually, Magic, she did sing.
And she was She was nowhere near with her.
Okay, I agree with that. But she was an aspiring singer. Give her that. But there are a collective group of people. They're called lawyers who wants to prove that that she didn't die. That obviously someone tried to kill her, and who was that person? Was it for money? And everyone believes that it was the fiancé.
Listen, I'm gonna give you my honest assessment. My honest assessment: Whitney Houston was a horrible mother. She got high and drunk around her daughter constantly. She adopted some boy that ended up having sex with her daughter, and she died in a bathtub, and her daughter followed in her footsteps because she was just as much of a mess as her mother was. End of story. That's the way I see it.
Basically. Unfortunately, because I love Whitney, but that's basically it. So, basically, that myth was not a myth. That conspiracy theory was not a conspiracy theory. All right, so Oran, we're going to go into yours. And no worries, because you can just start saying your list. However, next week is Rock Soup, and you're on Rock Soup, so you can continue with it next week. So, don't think I was just Oran, you're not going to do your
stuff. This is really kind of just... This will be quick. Don't worry. Okay, so starting in the 1800s, tell me if you've heard of these. The Dreyfus Affair, the 1800s. France jewelry or Jewish artillery officer. Anybody ever hear about that one?
The Dreyfus Affair?
Mm-hmm.
No. Logic?
Nope, obviously not.
No.
Okay,
no,
number two, the Mafia. The Mafia. Secret crime society, virtually unknown until 1960.
Of course, everybody knows the Mafia.
Turned out to be real. MK Ultra.
Is that what they called the Mafia back then? Is that what they called it or something?
Yeah, but think about this. At the time period, even though to us, now we know the Mafia as though it existed, and it's never even been a question, but there was a time period that it was a conspiracy theory.
Was it?
Yes. It was a conspiracy theory until it was proven. Until Joe Valachi first revealed the society's secrets to law enforcement officials in the 1960s. What was known that organized crime existed, but not the extent or their control included working with the CIA and politicians and biggest businesses in the world. And then once he came out and to law enforcement, it was no longer a conspiracy theory. MK Ultra from the 1950s. CIA ran a mind control project aimed at finding a truth serum to use on communist spies. Test subjects, LSD, other drugs without their consent. One man, Frank Olson, who was working for the government, died as a result of the experiments. Number 4, Operation Mockingbird. Anyone hear of that?
I think the person who would more know about these is Logic. We're not history buffs. Logic, have you heard of any of these? Well, other than the Mafia.
Well, the Dreyfus thing was this young French lieutenant or something that was accused of a crime of treason, and it really turned out to be another guy that had a whole other, mode of operation that was going on of what he was trying to achieve. What
about conspiracy theory Manhattan Project?
Well, that's what the caller, the caller, we started that. The caller did bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
The caller brought up the Manhattan Project?
The Manhattan Project turned out to be pretty real.
Yes, a few times.
Manhattan Project was them developing the atomic bomb.
Oh, really?
Asbestos was a conspiracy theory.
What was the whole conspiracy theory behind it, the Manhattan Project? Let's go back to that. What was the
whole... People didn't know. People didn't think that it was possible to have thousands of people working on the same project and not know what anything was about. And the guy that was running it, he basically wrote the book on compartmentalizing operations within the government itself. So you can have people, and this applies to 9/11 as well, you can have people working on a project that is meant to do something completely different, but you only tell them, focus on this. Like, your job is to make sure these radars do this. So all they do is that. But then you'll have 6 or 7 other teams doing something else that makes up the rest of the pie. So
everybody doesn't know what everybody's doing.
Exactly. So you don't have to go through and you don't have to kill thousands of people that are involved with your operation. They all don't know anything. And Operation Mockingbird was when the CIA went into the habits of controlling and influencing media and what they tell the public.
Okay.
Okay, so
right,
Manhattan
continue, Oran.
Yeah.
Asbestos, number 6, asbestos. Between 1930 and 1960, manufacturers did all they could to prevent the link between asbestos and respiratory disease. It actually was a conspiracy theory. Watergate.
Oh, yeah, because that was what they were using primarily in buildings, and they didn't want to, for lack of a better term,
and so once
waste
it was
money.
known, it's just like, and you know what? I don't think it's in here, but tobacco definitely should be in here because there is still, and it still continues to this day.
What with the commercials?
Plastic. I think plastic should be in there too. Like all of the
plastic
bottles.
Yeah, definitely should be in there.
He's right about that. In fact, you know that they go out to the oceans now, and there's places where there is sand that is plastic because it's just anyway. Number 7, Watergate.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. The number 8, the Tuskegee syphilis study. The United States Public Health Service carried out this clinical study
Tuskegee experiment
on 404 African men, with syphilis from 1932 to 1972.
That was real.
Men
Didn't
were given false
spread it and they couldn't control it or something?
Whoa, wait, what are you saying, Char?
Didn't they spread it and they couldn't control it or something? And
Correct.
They didn't know how to keep it under. And anyway, go ahead.
It's actually that more than 200 people died from it.
They just infected them to see what would happen.
Yeah, just
to see.
And they didn't know they were infected. They just gave it to them and let them go do whatever.
Out there. So and they can't. And what the result of that is they can't even begin to tell how many other people were affected by that.
Right. They just let them go awry.
But how is that a conspiracy theory? It's called market research.
No, because it was illegal.
They didn't kill nobody,
and they were killing people, and they weren't telling them what was going on.
Right.
That is a conspiracy theory.
Right.
And market research, people die. They sign a waiver. They know they can die. Some of these people may not have known.
Char,
but I mean, come on.
They didn't tell these black men that they were infecting them.
No, they gave them false and dangerous treatments. They didn't tell them.
Right.
Okay, and this is what I'm going to say. And this is what I'm going to say, Oran. What else should be on your list based on that is like flu shots. Flu shots, all the shots you're giving your kids. You don't know what's in there. The government could tell you whatever. The government could tell you whatever is in there, and it could be the same thing that happened to these Tuskegee Airmen.
But market research is more controlled, I would say. You know, market research, they give you something, then they give you a placebo, and they check it out, and they check this out. But that's more in a controlled environment. Well, that syphilis project, they just gave it to them and let them go do whatever, and we're going to see what happened, or what, and
Exactly. That's not market research. That would be conspiracy theory. So, yeah. What's next on the list?
Operation Northwoods. Early 1960s American military leaders drafted plans to create public support for a war against Cuba, to oust Fidel Castro from power. The plans included committing acts of terrorism in the U.S. cities, killing innocent people and U.S. soldiers, blowing up U.S. ship, assassinating Cuban, sinking boats of Cuban refugees, and hijacking planes. Number 10. Number 10, 1990, testimony of, you know what? I can't pronounce her name. Not even going to try. Nayrah. A 15-year-old girl named, her name, testified before U.S. Congress shooting Iraqi soldiers, killing Kuwaiti babies from incubators, causing them to die. Testimony later turned out to be a conspiracy theory. Testimony was false. CIA, all kinds of problems went on there. Number 11,
okay,
counterintelligence.
Hold on. Stop there. What was the purpose of her doing that?
Well, the purpose was she had no basis for assuming that the story was true, but it goes beyond that. If one hypothesis that the woman's story is fictitious from A to Z, then in no way diminishes the avalanche of human rights violations. So how did she just, there was more behind it. It wasn't just her. She was put up to it. Nevertheless, the senior Republican on the Human Rights Caucus, John Edward Porter, responded to the revelations by saying if he had known the girl was the ambassador's daughter, he would not have allowed her to testify. I guess that means that she had, I don't know, but it meets all the qualifications of it. I just don't know. I haven't done the research. There was 33 of them here. It was a little hard to get all these in.
Logic blocking in.
Logic, bail me out.
That's the first time I've actually heard about that, so I don't know.
Number 11.
Counterintelligence programs that act against activists in the 60s. COINTELPRO, acronym for Counterintelligence Program, was a series of covert and often illegal projects conducted by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation aimed at investigating and disrupting dissident political organizations within the United States. And the FBI used covert operations from its inception.
Black Panthers, SNCC.
Yep, there you go. 12, the Iran-Contra affair, 85 to 86. We're all familiar with that.
All right.
No.
Selling weapons.
Explain this, and this will be the last one for today. What is it?
Selling weapons, false flag. You go ahead, sir.
Yeah.
Clear trade.
Are you talking about the Iran-Contra affair?
Yeah.
Or the BC?
Yeah, I'm saying that's when we first got into the nuclear trade under the radar. It wasn't that open yet, but I think that's the beginning of that.
Yeah,
I believe that's
where Reagan traded the for.
Right. You said it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, but that was
heard
at
of
the
that.
beginning.
I guess I know what you're talking about now, but no, I had never heard of it.
Explain it, sir.
I mean, but
they just did. They just did. What we're going to do is pick up with Oran's list next Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So next Thursday is going to be our famous Rock Soup show. So each host is going to bring their topic, which we're going to talk about for 20 minutes each. So next week is Oran, C, Char, and Logic. So we have Oran's topic already. He's going to continue with his list. And I'm actually going to talk about Donald Trump because I'm just surprised at this whole thing. So that's what I'm going to talk about.
What time is the debate? What time is the debate tonight?
I have no idea. I'll probably watch it when we get off the air. But we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up. I got to pay the bills. Give me 1 second. Let's go to commercial, and then we'll be back.
Sing your heart out. Visit the Singing Megastore and do what you love the most in style. SingingMegastore.com, your only destination for singing resources covering musical categories including rock, pop, classical, musical theater, jazz and blues, Christian, alternative, teaching, and career guides. SingingMegastore.com. Calling out professionals, teachers, students, and anyone who loves singing to join the most updated online store with music products at the lowest prices. SingingMegastore.com. Love of singing.
Okay, so like I said, next week we're talking about Rock Soup. I'm talking Donald Trump. Oran's bringing his list. C, Char, and Logic. You just got to let me know what you're doing. We're on Thursdays. Again, is our new night, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I really hope you enjoyed this show of conspiracy theories, and I enjoyed the people that did call in. And thank you for listening. Peace out, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yes.
Peace.
Bye.